Okay, we are in BEA5, the analog studio or voltage control studio, and we have a multi-channel loudspeaker system in the studio, and there is one volume control for all the speakers simultaneously. Yeah? And this is the surround monitor controller by SPL that we have here. There are 5 speakers plus a subwoofer in the studio. So there is a left front, a right front, a center speaker, a left rear, a right rear, and the subwoofer here on the floor. Yeah. Okay, now on this surround controller there are switches which make it possible to switch on and off individual speakers. You don't want to change that, yeah? Just leave them pressed. Should you find that a loudspeaker is not working in the studio, then first check these switches, because there might be one which has been turned off accidentally or intentionally, you never know. Now, then we have the large volume control here. It should be somewhere between 40 and 50, yeah? So let's say 11 and 12 o'clock. If you have to go all the way up to get a proper signal, then something else is wrong, yeah? So don't do that, because you are in danger. If you have the volume control here completely open and you make a mistake on the mixing desk or on the patch field, you might produce a sound that is incredibly loud and which is even harmful. Yeah? So keep the volume control somewhere here, and if you don't have a sound that is loud enough like that, then you have to check the mixing desk. Okay. Now, just to demonstrate some things, we are going to play a CD and route it through the mixing desk in various ways. So, there is a CD here with 94 little sound samples on it, and it's convenient to have here because there's always something that we can use for little experiments. The CD is not going through the patch bay. And many devices actually do not go through the patch bay here, like the tape machines, the effect processors, and also the CD player. They are directly connected to the mixing desk. So now if you see here, you have a channel where it says left and right CD. Yeah. That means actually that all the blue channels here are stereo channels, so they operate 2 channels simultaneously, a left and the right channel. Okay. Now, every channel here and also here, so the white faders are the mono inputs. They have an A input and a B input. And which one is actually going to that channel is determined by a little switch here. Yeah. So it says line B. Yeah. When that switch is pressed, we are feeding line B into this channel. When it is not pressed, we are feeding line A into this channel. Now you see here a little LED bar. This LED bar is indicating a level, and you can already tell by the fact that this fader is closed that this level is not determined by the setting of the fader, but this level is determined by the gain. So this is an amplification stage at the input of the channel. Yeah? So this has to be adjusted in such a way that you have a proper level here, but no clipping. Yeah? I mean, a little incidental clipping is okay, but if it is like this, oh, now there is no signal. 1 second. If it's like this, then that's just wrong, so reduce the level. In general, all equipment in the studio is calibrated in such a way that you have a good gain at around this setting. Yeah? Maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit softer, but usually around 11 o'clock is the right setting. Okay, now this is a stereo channel. It gives you also the possibility to sum the left and the right channels by pressing mono. Or you can phase invert the left channel. So that means that the phase of the left channel in relation to the right channel is swapped. Yeah. Then we have here a high pass filter. A high pass filter at 50 Hz. That means that the lowest frequencies of the channel will be taken out. This is to avoid rumble, yeah. But in this studio, it's usually not necessary to use it. Then we have a 4-band equalizer with high frequencies, high mid frequencies, low mid frequencies, and low frequencies. This equalizer only works when the EQ is switched on. Yeah. So that also means that if you have a setting like this, with this switch you can compare the filtered sound with the unfiltered sound. Be aware that the equalizer also influences the gain. Yeah? So if you have a high amplification with the equalizer like this, that means that you can actually have clipping here, so you would have to reduce the gain. But of course an equalizer like this is not meant to have a setting like that. It is meant for smaller corrections, so to make something a little bit brighter or a little bit less aggressive or a little bit fatter, that kind of thing. Yeah. Now, before I'm going to discuss the auxiliaries, I'm going to make some sound. Yeah. So I'm going to open the fader of the CD player, and I'm going to press left and right. Yeah. Now I'm sending the sound to the left and the right master fader, and the left and the right master fader always go to the left and the right front speaker. Now there is a monitor level control here, but that just should stay fully opened, because we are controlling the level with the master volume control in the studio. Yeah? And if I would change this, I would change the balance between the speakers, and I want all the speakers to have the same level on the mixing desk so that I have equal control with the big knob over there. Yeah? So this should stay like that. Okay, now let's say that I want this sound to appear on the rear speakers. Yeah? Now comes something that confuses everybody every year again and again, because for the rear speakers we need the matrices that we have here. Yeah? So there is a matrix for every additional speaker in this studio. So we have the center speaker here, we have the subwoofer, we have the left rear speaker, we have the right rear speaker, and we have the two focal speakers which are here in front for near field monitoring. Now, what I need to do to send a sound to the center speaker, for instance, is to make a special mix for this center speaker from signals that come from the master faders. So if I want, for instance, the outputs of the left and right master fader to appear mono on the center speaker, yeah, which is something that people sometimes like, is to open the left and the right knob here. And that means now that if I do this, yeah, that the sound appears mono on the center speaker. Okay. I can also say no, I want to have my left-right control just like this. And I'm going to use one of the additional buses for the center speaker, for instance number 5, yeah, like this. That means that I have to open this one. So now the output of bus fader number 5 will go to the center speaker. So if I now change this to that, just wait until the sound comes. It's there. Yeah? Now it's right. Now it's there. And the same goes for the rear speakers. So if I open 3 and 4 here, yeah, I have to open these. So now these two are feeding the rear speakers. I press 3 and 4. Wait until the sound comes. So that's now on the rear. Now this gives me all kinds of possibilities. Yeah. Now looking at the recording lines here, we see also some additional possibilities here. Yeah. One of them is tone control. So if we have group faders 1 and 2 here, this here concerns 1, This here concerns 2. Yeah? So that means that I have high frequency and low frequency control for this one, high frequency and low frequency control for this one. I have auxiliary sends for the group faders, which is usually something you don't want, yeah, because you are already sending things from here, and if you're also sending from here, you are creating loops. So don't do that. And then this is tricky, because these ones are open very often. People open them, and you shouldn't, because what you do with these is that you are feeding the output of a group fader to the left and the right masters. Yeah, so if I do this, so for instance, I have the CD, I bring it to 1, 2, yeah, and not to left, right. If I now open this, wait until the sound is there, yeah, and I have a pen. So like this, I'm now feeding this one through this knob to the left master fader. Now it's going to the right, yeah. But usually, when you are using these as recording lines or as separate feeds for other speakers, you don't want them to leak to the left and right front speakers. So that's why it is annoying when they're open. Yeah? Okay. So leave those closed. That's my advice. Now, going to the auxiliaries. Auxiliaries are sends, so they are similar to group faders. Yeah? But they are separate outputs on the mixing desk, and auxiliaries are usually used in studios or in live situations to feed effect processors. So for instance, we have here a PCM90 reverb, which is a very nice lexicon reverb. It is already somewhat older, but the PCM90 is still a standard in many, many, many studios. So I'm now going to a preset that is called Deep Blue, which is a very nice orchestral reverb, so it simulates more or less the reverb of a concert hall. And this here is the input control for the reverb. Now you see here that there is one dot marked red. It's a bit faint, but I should do it again. This is more or less the proper input level setting for the lexicon reverb. And so it is for the MX400 lexicon, which is another processor. Yeah. Again, if you need to turn this up much further, you're doing something else wrong. Okay, now we are going back to my signal here. Yeah. Let's go back to these footsteps for a while. What was it, Hannah? Yeah. Now, I'm going to open auxiliaries 1 and 2, because those are feeding the lexicon. And the sound is not appearing there yet, because the master auxiliaries are still closed. So, now you see it. So why do we have these master auxiliaries? Let's say that you have several different signals here, and you are controlling, you're sending them to the reverb but with different levels. So this one fully, another one a little bit, one somewhere in the middle. If you then want to have an overall control over the reverb send, you can do that with the master. Yes, so that's convenient. If the reverb is not working, if somebody tells you the reverb is not working, it is usually because the master auxiliaries are closed. So let's try it again. Now the PCM90 is coming back on a stereo channel here, and it is red, so that means it is coming in on line B. So line B has to be pressed here. Now let's see. Beautiful reverb. Yeah. Now be careful not to open. Be careful not to send the output of the reverb back to the input. Yeah, if you do that, you create feedback. You can hear it. So what can I do now? Now I have a mix of the dry signal with the reverb on the front speakers. But I could also send the reverb to my rear speakers by pressing 3/4. So you won't hear it on the video, of course, but we now have the dry signal on the front speakers and the reverb on the rear speakers, which gives a very special spatial effect. Now, there is a little button here under the auxiliaries 1 and 2 which says pre. Yeah? That means that if I press pre, I'm feeding the sound to the reverb even when the fader here is closed. When pre is not pressed, the signal that goes through the auxiliary is depending on the level of the fader itself. Yeah? So then we have auxiliaries 3 and 4, they go to the patch field there. We have, so they appear, where is it? Here. And then we have auxiliaries 5, 6, 7 and 8, which are the inputs for the MX400, another lexicon effect processor. Yeah. The MX400 can be used as two independent stereo effect processors. So for instance, one for reverb and another one for delay. Or you can use it as a surround reverb, which means that you have one or two inputs and you have a true surround reverb on 4 output channels. This is why the Lexicon MX400 comes back on the mixing desk on 2 stereo faders. Yeah? So it has 4 auxiliary sends and 2 stereo returns. Well, I think that's the mixing desk. Well, we could briefly talk about the wide input channels. Yeah? The wide input channels are mono channels. They're very similar to the stereo channels, but there are a few small differences. One of them is that the phase knob is an absolute phase, so it just is the phase of this channel, whereas here the phase is the phase relation between the left and the right channel. And the other thing is that the equalizer is half parametric, so that means that apart from increasing or decreasing the high frequencies with this knob, you can also control the frequency range that you are actually emphasizing or decreasing, which is the same for the mid frequencies and the low frequencies and the low frequencies. Yeah. So that's quite obvious. If I take some pink noise from the patch bay and I feed it to a mono channel, if I now press EQ on and I bring the high mid frequencies in, so this is the level decreasing or increasing, and this is the actual frequency that you are influencing with this knob. Same with this one. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. One thing that sometimes happens and that annoys people or confuses people is that solo buttons are accidentally pressed. Yeah? If you have many things going on the mixing desk, you just want to listen to one signal, you can press the solo button. Then that signal directly goes to the left and the right front speakers, but all the other signals are muted. Yeah? So if you have something soloed here, you won't hear this. Yeah? So you might think, what is going on here? Because I don't hear anything. You see a warning here also, and you see a warning here. Yeah? So be careful with those solos. And of course you can also mute signals. Yeah? So you can mute a channel, you can mute a group fader, you can mute a loudspeaker. one thing maybe about levels. Yeah, you see here VU meters. VU meters are, yeah, that's old technology. You don't see them on computers unless you have some plug-in that has a VU meter simulation. Yeah, but real VU meters you don't see very often anymore. They're actually quite convenient in an analog studio because they give a very nice average indication of your sound level. Yeah. So what does that mean? If you take, for instance, a snare drum, yeah, or another sound with a very sharp attack, that means that there is a lot of energy in the beginning of the sound, and after that there is a decay which is very short. Now a peak meter on a computer will show that peak, yeah, because it can respond very fast to the sound level. The VU meter cannot. Yeah? So it will try to reach the level and indicate it, but before the VU meter is there, because it's a physical thing, before it's there, the sound level is already dropped and the VU meter, the needle drops as well. So, but on the other hand, if you just have a piece of music, a Beethoven symphony or a string quartet or electronic music or whatever, the VU meter gives a very nice average indication of the level. Yeah. But that also means that if you are working with pure electronic signals, so for instance sound from an oscillator, you should not go over the 0 VU indication, yeah, because that's already very loud. Whereas when you are working with music that has percussive sounds in it, it is not such a big deal if the VU meter goes over the 0 a little bit. Now this mixing desk is very silent, the tone control is fantastic, and it has what you call a very high headroom, yeah, or large headroom you should say. So that means that you can send signals through this desk and amplify them a lot without getting distortion. On the other hand, and that's very convenient when you are working with analog tape machines, for instance. On the other hand, when you are recording in Pro Tools, yeah, you don't want to go so loud. There's no need to go so loud because you're clipping in the digital domain, and that's just very annoying and ugly. So this is something that you should avoid. So therefore, the experience is that we have calibrated everything in such a way that the 0 VU point here with a steady signal, so with a sine wave for instance, corresponds to -15 full scale in Pro Tools. Yeah? So that's not a mistake, so that we forgot to balance those things. No, we did it intentionally, because if we would equal 0 dB VU with 0 dB full scale in Pro Tools, you would have a completely unworkable situation.